Contextualization. All right, so this is going to help with the NHD project as well as with the essays and the DBQs that we do in class. So, what is contextualization? Okay, contextualization is a group of sentences that are content rich that set up the story. It gives you a broader historical context to your thesis. So, it's kind of like what happened before. Um, some of the tips that you need for a good context is summarize the previous events that led up to that particular thesis you're talking about. Two, be specific. Don't say stuff like, a lot of wars happened, some people died, you know, other people rebelled. I need like some specifics before, right? Don't just say some. Don't use just there were some economic problems or there were some political problems. Don't be that broad, okay? Make sure that whatever your context is, that it relates to your essay, like the subject matter. So, in other words, don't start giving me the context for, um, um, you know, the Aztecs being conquered if your essay is, say, for example, about, I don't know, um, something going on in South America with the Inca. Okay, you make sure that your whatever the context is relates to your subject matter. And lastly, make sure that you connect it to your thesis. You connect the context to the thesis, and I'll show you some examples on how to do all of that. So uh, let me show you an example of contextualization, right? How many of you guys have seen The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? All right. So what got The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to Bel-Air?
Now this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you how I became the prince of a town called Bel Air. In West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all shooting some b-ball outside of the school. When a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight and my mom got scared and said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle in Bel Air." I begged and pleaded with her day after day, but she packed my suitcase and sent me on my way. She gave me a kiss and then she gave me my ticket. I put my Walkman on and said I might as well kick it. First class, yo, this is bad. Drinking orange juice out of a champagne glass. Is this what the people of Bel Air living like? This might be alright. I whistled for a cab, and when it came near, the license plate said freshen it and dice in the mirror. If anything, I could say that this cab was rare, but I thought, man, forget it. Yo, home's the Bel Air. I pulled up to the house about 7 or 8, and I yelled to the cabbie, "Yo, home, smell you later." Looked at my kingdom, I was finally there to sit on my throne as the Prince of Bel Air.
All right. So that's basically contextualization for how the Prince of Bel-Air got to Bel-Air. So let's do an example, a historical example now, right? So let's say this is my thesis. During the 15th to the 19th centuries, the global flow of sugar affected Africa as trading for African slaves increased regional warfare. In addition, sugar production affected the Americas by increasing exploitation of African slave labor for these sugar plantations. So in other words, my thesis is about the negative effects on Africa and the Americas of sugar. Again, sugar and its effects, its negative effects on Africa and the Americas. So let's contextualize for that. Context, like I said, is all the big events, all the large events that led to your particular thesis. So, what is the context of sugar in the Atlantic world? Well, if you remember from lessons in the past for my 10th graders, and from lessons from last year for you 11th graders, this is how it begins. It begins with the Ottomans taking over Constantinople and limiting uh, the access to Europeans to Chinese luxury goods, right? So then Columbus decides to sail westwards. And in that sailing westward, Europeans find the Americas, right? And as they find the Americas, they began what's called the Columbian Exchange, a biological exchange of both foods and diseases. And due to that exchange, they're able to conquer the large empires in the Americas, like the Aztecs and the Inca, but also it ends up um, having very negative effects on the Native American population. It goes down significantly. The Native American population goes down significantly. Thus, when Europeans needed coerced labor, instead of trying to coerce the natives, they ended up having to bring African slaves. So there, I've given you the story, the short version of how you ended up with these negative effects, right? So again, we're looking at the prompt, and I say, during the 15th centuries, the global flow of sugar affected Africa and trading of African slaves, and in the Americas, an increasing exploitation in the plantations, right? So here is my contextualization, right? I say stuff like in 1453, the Ottomans took over Constantinople, limiting the access of Europeans to Asian luxury goods. This motivated Columbus to try and search a route by sailing west to try and reach Asia. He stumbled upon the Americas, led to Europeans. This led Europeans to explore and colonize the new continent. The exploration and colonization of the Americas led to the Columbian Exchange. Biological exchange meant an exchange of foods, but also diseases. The exchange of diseases led to a conquest and a sharp decline in the native population. Due to the need for coerced labor and the decline of indigenous people, Europeans began to import African slaves. So now here's one of the keys. Now you need to connect your contextualization to your thesis. And here is my connection. As sugar becomes a major trading commodity, it affected Africa and the Americas in very negative ways. So my connection is kind of broad. Why? Because now I'm going to give you my thesis that's very um, um, what do you call it? It's not broad. It's specific. So now I'm giving you the specifics on the negative effects of sugar trade on not only Africa but on the Americas and the exploitation of African slaves in the sugar plantations. So that's what you got to do. You got to give me the story behind your thesis and then connect it. Okay. So that's contextualization, ladies and gentlemen.